couldn't this meeting have just been an email? I've been there, you've been there, we've all been there. But what if I told you it's not that simple? Not every meeting can be an email, and not every email should be an email. There's a little bit to it. There's a fine line, a gray area that we need to explore before we decide how best to call a meeting or write the email. If you're new to the channel, my name is David Burkus, and I study high-performing teams and work with leaders to build their best team ever. If you're looking to grow as a leader and navigate the ever-changing workplace, then subscribe to the channel, or better yet, join our email newsletter community, link in the description below. All right, let's get into it. Meetings get a bad rap for a good reason. Too many of them are long, boring, and filled with unproductive status updates that really could have been an email. But before you go thinking that every meeting is equivalent to an email, that email carries the same weight and the ability to communicate as an in-person meeting, I've got some news for you. The science says otherwise. Research done at New York University in 2005 found that even when two people know each other really, really well, communicating via email still carries a very high risk of miscommunication. There are so many nonverbal cues involved in when two humans communicate, and all of that is gone when it's purely text-based. Their findings even revealed a significant gap between a sender's message and whether or not it would be misinterpreted, and how the receiver actually received it. And the primary explanation for this is ego. I mean, yeah, you know them and they know you, but you know you a whole lot better. And so you think you're being clear because you're using your own perception as the judgment. And then when somebody else is perceiving that message, they're just not catching what you think they're catching. That little bit of sarcasm you put in there, not catching it. That emoji, probably more confusing unless it was one of the basic ones. And so despite the fact that you thought you were crystal clear, they don't know you as well as you know you. And so you're a terrible judge of how clear you were. And it gets worse. When emails lack context, we fill in the gaps ourselves, and we often use stereotypes to do it. In another study, researchers found that prospective interviewees' intelligence was judged totally differently depending on whether or not they were communicating via email or via voice. In other words, when you can hear the person, you can get a better read on them. When you just read their text-based responses, you assume a lot of things based on their name or the resume that you read before. And those assumptions don't line up with reality. So you take all of this together and you realize that the question is not, could this whole thing have been an email, but really, how likely is it that this information is going to be misinterpreted? And if it is, what's the cost of that? And if the cost and the risk of misinterpretation is high, then we're probably back to the conference room. Now, I'm not saying write off email entirely, although that's been tried before. And I'm not saying cancel all meetings and switch them over to emails. I'm saying we should probably have some criteria to use as we decide. And I've got you there. Ask yourself, what's the goal here? If it's just to convey new information or give a status update, then yeah, this could probably be an email. But if it involves making decisions, brainstorming ideas, or resolving conflict between people, then a meeting might be necessary. You might have to get everyone together face-to-face or face-to-virtual-face and have a real conversation, a dialogue. Think of it this way. If people need to ask clarifying questions, or if you're wondering what their reaction is and you want to get that fast, then this is a meeting. If you're just giving out a list of tasks completed or tasks to be done, then hit send and save everyone else's time. If it's just a monologue, then it's not a meeting. Meetings should be dialogues, opportunities for everyone to share their perspective, to make their voice heard, and to react in real time to what you're going to say. And by the way, let's talk about recurring meetings here, because a lot of recurring meetings are actually just status updates that happen in person. They're just sequential monologues, not dialogues. So if you've had this meeting every Monday and so you're going to have it again next Monday, not a good enough reason. What are we going to do in that meeting? If everyone's just going to monologue in sequence, maybe this is asynchronous. Review these recurring meetings regularly. If we need people's reactions, we need updates, we need to figure out how we're going to help each other, then keep it on the calendar. When you're dealing with sensitive issues or really complicated topics, then these are probably meetings. For example, if there's a restructure and people's roles are changing, and also how the team fits into the larger organizational whole, or really any time the team needs to check its alignment with the larger organizational mission, this is probably better to happen in person because there's a lot of feedback and reactions that you're going to want to absorb. A lot that gets said in your nonverbal cues and also in the feedback that you witness from the team as you're talking that email just can't replicate. Try asking this question before you send that email. Will people need to read between the lines? If they will, then there's a really high risk of misinterpretation, and maybe it's a meeting. Sometimes things are pretty simple. Yeah, you want everybody's feedback, you want everybody's vote, but it's not that complicated. Are we moving forward with this new hire? Yay or nay? Is the Christmas party happening this Friday or next Friday? Yay or nay? Are we moving forward with this particular vendor? Yay or nay? When it's simple, easy answers like that, and everybody's already up to speed on all the factors that go into that decision, then you don't need a final meeting just to make the final decision. A simple vote in email or Slack channel or any other tool you have, that's good enough. These are decisions, these are discussions, absolutely, but you've probably already had a meeting about it. You've had the dialogue, you sent out all of the additional information and answered all of the questions. And so now it's time to just get the decision. So put it up for a vote electronically, however you want, and get the decision made. So now you've got the checklist, you've got the questions, and I've got homework for you. Look at your calendar and identify one meeting you've got scheduled in the next month that could probably be an email. Now, go to your email inbox, find an email that wasn't really clear and probably should have been a meeting. Now, don't call that meeting. I don't want you to get oversaturated with meetings, but just recognize, hey, I messed up here, and next time, I'm probably gonna have to talk about this in person or at least with everybody. Remember that meetings aren't inherently bad, they're just overused. And emails aren't bad either, they're just misused a lot of the time. In both cases, what you really want is to send the message that I care about your time and I care about your voice, and you're making decisions about whether or not it's a meeting or an email based on those two things. And by the way, if you do care about your team's voice, you're going to want to increase the candor on your team. So you're going to check out this video here on how to grow candor and better discussion with everyone on your team.